Hello and welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Wealth Podcast. Today I have my guest, Omar Kassem, and this is someone who I have met through the ceremonial path. And Omar is someone I really respect, who has, someone who I really see who is devoted to healing, higher consciousness, and the ceremonial path, and to prayer. And since I have met Omar, he's actually been really inspirational to me in just, stepping deeper and deeper into the work, deeper into intention. And as of lately, the last several months, or not several months even, just even the last few months, I have been stepping much deeper into just ceremony as like a way of life almost. And Omar is almost undoubtedly there at ceremony. If there's ceremony going on, Omar knows about it. And I'm really excited to dive into this podcast with him and go through the things that he has learned and where he's going, and kind of the lessons that he's learned along the journey. So I hope you enjoy the podcast, and I hope you enjoy hearing Omar's wisdom. Hello, Omar Kassem. How are you today?
Good. How are you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Welcome to the Spiritual Wealth Podcast.
Yeah.
I am super excited to have you here.
I'm very thankful to be here. Thank you, Brad.
Yeah. You're a friend that I've met this year, I guess.
Yes.
Walking the path.
In a sacred fire we met, actually. That was the first time I ever...
Which way was that?
𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗢𝗡 Sacred Fire at the... It's like a full moon ceremony.
Right. Yeah.
It's the first time I ever met a lot of the people.
Yeah, so I met you through Jen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good. It was a good ceremony.
Cool. And I brought you on here because you're someone who I feel is really in the work right now. Mm-hmm. That's what I've observed. And you seem to be stepping deeper and deeper into the work on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. But yeah, maybe today I can share my experience, and then maybe I'll teach people something about the spiritual journey.
Totally.
And the work it takes.
And what is the work?
Yeah.
Right? What is the work? But you're super interesting. You've come from Egypt. You moved here when you were 16.
Yes.
You were telling me you moved to Canada when you were 16.
Yes.
To Eastern Canada, Newfoundland, and New Brunswick, and
I was 16. And I was very young and immature, but I came here on my own, and I thought it was a good idea for some reason. But no, it was a great experience, and I kind of went straight into the fire.
Did your parents support you?
Yeah, they did. Thankfully.
Yeah, and then you kind of so you got here pretty young. You eventually made your way to Western Canada, but you kind of went through this whole period. You got married to the wrong person, I guess. Yeah,
the right person at the time is how I like to think of it. It was definitely
That's a much better way.
Yeah, she was good. She was a good person, and it was the right thing to do at the time. And we got married, and then I moved to BC, moved to Nelson for work, and I worked as an engineer in hydro dams, and doing that, that 9-to-5 lifestyle. And I grew up in a spiritual environment. Actually, I grew up with Islam, and I learned, that's where I first learned how to pray. I learned it was very regimented, sort of specific way to pray, which didn't really resonate with me, and I kind of let go of it at a young age, and wasn't really my thing. It didn't really feel connected to God, didn't feel connected to Creator, didn't feel connected to anything.
Right.
So yeah, that was the start of my life.
Why did you come to Canada originally?
I wanted to get a good education. Wanted to do, I wanted to get a science education. So, and I want to try something different. Just go out there and explore. I didn't want to be in the same environment. I wasn't planning to come to Canada. I was 16, but I had the chance. I applied to one university. Didn't even feel like I was going to get accepted. And then the acceptance letter was in my junk mail. And I was like, oh crap, okay. And I had a choice, either stay in the Middle East or venture and challenge myself and explore. And I decided to challenge myself and get uncomfortable and explore. And I feel like anytime I did that in my life, where I was put myself in a place of challenge and discomfort, that's when I learned something and I grew as a person, as a man. So
I can resonate with that.
Yeah. And, you know, I'll give a few examples here today on some really, really challenging situations that I've been through and how I kind of overcame those situations and grew.
Yeah. So we'll get into that. But as you've expressed to me, that has been your journey, just like putting yourself in the face of discomfort and challenge and letting the expansion be the outcome.
Yes.
So you kind of get here, you're in Canada, you're 16, you eventually did make your way down here around 2019. I know you said you were living in Surrey.
Yeah.
And you were kind of, you said caught in the, what did you call it? The matrix?
The vortex.
The vortex of 9 to 5.
The spinning vortex. Well,
so
marriage.
What does that mean?
Marriage was definitely a challenge. That was the first big challenge I had in my life, was navigating a marriage and navigating a relationship.
Right.
And then, I wasn't really navigating it very well. Let's just say that. And then I became quite overweight, depressed, and then we divorced. And then that's when I was in Surrey. We moved from Nelson to Surrey. And then,
you moved with her or not?
Yeah, moved with her. Okay. And then we divorced. And that was probably one of the biggest challenges and the biggest heartbreaks in my life. I was deeply sad, deeply depressed, and I really loved her. And, I wasn't ready for something like that. And that was the big, that was a lot of pain. And when I navigated through that pain is when I became more who I am, and I learned about myself.
Yeah.
And that's when I challenged. So yeah, I was overweight. I was physically not where I wanted to be. And then I decided,
and you're working as an engineer at this time, right?
Yes. And I was working that 9 to 5 lifestyle. I was taking the SkyTrain. I was, every day I was, eating not very healthy food, not connected to anything really, just trying to make money, living life for work. And then I did a triathlon. I trained for a triathlon, and I didn't really know how to swim even like 25 meters in a pool at the time without getting like completely exhausted. So then I decided, okay, well, let me do something challenging. I need to prove that I'm actually capable of doing something here.
This is kind of after you've kind of
after the divorce,
and you're like trying to get yourself out of your,
get my life back together. Yeah, I was like broken into pieces. So I had to like build myself up again, and I had to build myself up into what I think I ought to be or wanted to be. I was never athletic when I grew up. I didn't have the athleticism. My parents didn't even encourage me to ride a bike, and I didn't know how to ride a bike. So I learned how to swim. I learned how to ride a bike, and I did that in about 2 or 3 months. I just intensive every day. And, it was really challenging getting up in the morning, being sore every single day, and just being like, okay, I know I need to do this for myself. I need to prove this to myself, and just dragging my ass to the gym or to the pool and to work out. I just
doing this in between after work, like your engineering
day? Yeah. It was just my day was just work and then exercise the whole time. It was like a dedication, a devotion to exercise.
Yeah.
So it was devotion. I was, that devotion is where I actually learned something too, when I dedicated all this time and effort and energy.
Yeah.
And then I ended up proving it to myself. I ended up doing the triathlon in UBC, and then I placed 83rd out of 145 participants. Never did I think that I could achieve anything like that. So I was pretty happy with myself, and that was like, okay, Omar, you're not too bad. You can actually do something good.
Yeah.
If you put your mind to it. So think about that. You never rode a bike, and you put your mind to doing something. What else can you do if you put your mind into it?
Isn't that the question? What else can we do?
And so that's kind of that's been the test and the question for the rest of my life so far, and going into the next few years of my life too, is what can I do if I put my mind into it?
And this is pre-COVID.
That was pre-COVID, and then COVID hit.
And you said this is when really...
that's when really things really started to change. So, it was lockdown. Everyone had to be in their community and in their environment and in their home. And then when I was in my home, I was in my house, in my apartment, I realized, oh, okay, well, I actually don't know anyone in my community. I don't spend any time here. And I'm only living to be next to my office. Like, what? Like, what kind of lifestyle is that? Like, I'm just living next to work. Like,
it's the North American way.
Yeah. I was so depressed. I was like, I need to get out. I couldn't even like get on the bike. And it was just like, I was getting on the bike and there were cars everywhere. And in Surrey, they don't really care about bikers. And then I was like, okay, I'm not doing things right here. I need to revisit things. And then my friends were all in the same thought pattern. So then we moved to Squamish. We found like an executive retreat in the Squamish Valley, 5 acres. It was shut down because of COVID.
Yeah.
And the rent was cheap. So we all moved there. And then we were out in the bush. And that's when I started connecting with land and water and nature. And I think that's where a lot of the healing really started for me. And it starts for a lot of people, is that connection.
Just connection to nature.
To nature, yeah. Nature has spirit. You know, in this society, this vortex, this capitalist consumer society we're in, we're disconnected from spirit, because spirit is in the trees, it's in the rocks, it's in the water. Those are the teachings that I learned from my indigenous teachers. And, in the consumerist society, we believe that all these things are dead. The rocks are dead. The water is dead. There's no life and all that. That's why we go and we mine and extract kind of without any consciousness. It's because we think everything's dead, but actually,
and we think everything is just value or money.
Yeah.
Like everything has a dollar bill
dollar
sign in
bill
front
to
of
it. Yes. So when I was present in nature, that's when I started, even subconsciously connecting with that spirit.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the slightest opening of my spiritual path. And then
and you're kind of like, something's feeling right, but you're unconscious of what's changing.
Yeah, it was challenging too, because like deep down that I could feel that change, and I was almost resisting it. I was like, what am I doing here? Like I was there for a month. I was like, what am I doing here? I don't want to go back to Surrey and back to the city life and back to
a part of you is saying that.
Yeah, and like my friends were like, don't be an idiot. Like just, we just moved here. Just, enjoy this. We're not going to have this for very long. And I was like, okay. And yeah, I'm glad I stayed. But and then I did some river rafting. There was this river rafting company right next to where we live, and I was like, what if I do some river rafting? That sounds like a great idea.
You said you got certified in it? Is that
right? Yeah, I became a
like,
whitewater rafting guide. So I did that for the whole summer, and I did like intensively, 2 or 3 weeks training.
Yeah.
And it was intensive, like 12-hour days out in the rain. Didn't matter if it was raining or not. And it was a very rainy season. So I was out in the rain in the cold water for a long time. And so again, I went into this extremely challenging, unfamiliar situation. Like I said, I never grew up being athletic. So to put myself in a situation like that, where there's danger and risk, class 4 rapids and all that.
Yeah.
It was very unfamiliar. And yeah, I put myself in that situation, and then that's when I connected deeply with the water and the river and the mountains and everything, just being there and putting myself in this situation of immense risk.
This is kind of right in the middle, like this is 2020.
Yes.
So we're in the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, COVID pandemic, and yeah. And yeah, I was actually still working. I still had like a full-time job at the time, but I managed to kind of like swing it and get some work done and then go and take some time off if I could and go. And
as opposed to just going home and doing nothing and waiting for the next work day.
Yeah, it was challenging. It was kind of funny too, because I'd run into like coworkers that were in the rafting, like people that were in the company that I worked for. Yeah. In the rafting trip, and they'd be like, I'll be like, oh yeah, I work for, and they're like, I work for this company, and then they're like, oh, and you're a raft guide too? I'm like, yeah. They never asked any questions, but yeah, it was good. And yeah, and so I started going. So after I got good, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to buy a raft. So then because even with the rafting company, they're thinking about money. They're thinking about tours. They want people to go in and out.
For sure.
They're not, they're not trying to work on my connection with nature, right? They have their own consumerists. They're trying to extract money in their own way. But I want to do my own thing. So I got a raft. I bought a raft, and me and my friends all had rafts. And we used to go out on our own and go on expeditions. So we went on a 5-day river expedition up in northern BC in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, and that's where I probably had one of the most significant connective experiences in my life. And again, it wasn't this conscious thing. It was all sort of developing without me being consciously aware of it. But it was beautiful. Yeah. And I had an experience in that trip that really was a big moment. Was when I went down a waterfall on my raft. Yeah. And because I was probably biting off way more than I could chew, my raft flipped. And then I had this moment where, you know, the raft was upside down. Everyone that was in my raft was out in the water, including one of my best friends. And then I was like, oh crap, I screwed up. So I had to get on the raft and I was trying to unflip it and it wouldn't work. And then I took this like really high risk maneuver. I saw this window of opportunity where I could save the situation, save myself, save the raft and all the gear and my friend. And I went for it. I just jumped into this eddy and I grabbed a log and the boat and I just like pulled it into shore. Just pure like brute strength of me. And I don't even remember how I really did it, but it all just happened. I didn't have a chance to have my self-doubts. Yeah. Or any of my fears. So it's impulsive. Yeah, it was impulsive, but it came from somewhere of like a deep knowing that I could do this, you know? And I didn't have time to doubt that feeling. So I did it. And my friend was like screaming as I was doing it. He was like, like it's terrifying. And then, yeah, I ended up like saving the situation, like saving my life, saving the raft and saving my friend. And at that moment, I realized I was like, okay, like again, another intensely terrifying and challenging situation where I proved that is something in me, you know, that is very capable and knowing, and strong. Yeah. And again, that was sort of an awakening of some kind of my true spirit and what I can do if I put myself into that situation. Right. Of discomfort and challenge.
And like each one of these, they're all building confidence and certainty.
Yes. And
masculine traits.
Yes. And you know, I grew up as a kid. When I was a kid, I wasn't very confident at all. I was, you know, mommy, little boy, you know, where's mommy sort of thing. Like, you know, I was not a very confident kid. Yeah. I was overweight. And so all that stuff is what I needed to kind of like grow out of that and be confident. Because you can't do anything in life without being confident, you know?
I agree.
Yeah. And people will believe you and believe you and who you are when you're confident. And if you're doubting yourself, everyone's going to doubt you, you know? So what's the point of just doubting yourself? Especially if you want to get into business, you have to have that confidence and that knowing. Because when you project that confidence and that knowing into your vision,
it's kind of that whole fake it or make it thing. I'm not sure. Yeah, you have to pretend at some level. I mean, still people can see through that stuff, but you have to go with as much confidence as you can and be willing to fail. Because you can be confident in like, I'm going to try my best. I'm going to go for it. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean you're confident you're going to actually do it. You still can totally fail, but you're confident you're going to try again.
Yes. And see, here's my perspective with fake it until you make it. So I think there's a fine line. People really, really respect you when you're pushing your edge, you know? Yeah. And as long as people see you pushing your edge, whatever that edge is, it could be still beginner. Yeah. But if you're pushing the edge and really challenging yourself, people will see something in you, believe in you, and respect you and want to back you up. But if you're pushing way beyond your edge, you know, that's also clear. And that's when it's like, okay, this guy's like really fake. He's not actually capable. And people will see when you're pushing way, way beyond your actual limit and edge. So I think it's a balance. I think you always want to just be pushing the edge of what you're capable of wherever you are, whether you're a beginner or whether you're an expert. And I think that's what people respect. You know, and in the rafting trip, like I was pushing my edge the whole time.
But again, if you use that same analogy, if you were to push way beyond your limit and you're not actually capable, you'd actually be putting other people and yourself at risk.
Exactly.
Right? Which is not fair or in alignment.
Or in alignment, yes.
Yeah, it's just you being an ego. Using the ego to maybe get... Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
So then, yeah, you kind of go on this journey. You're breaking down boundaries about who you think you are, what you can and can't do.
Yes. Turns out I did have a bit of athleticism in me, you know?
Well,
so yeah.
As you would.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. And then you kind of, I think you said it was 2020 where you were first introduced to plant medicines.
Yeah.
Mushrooms specifically, you said.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. So that's, after that is when I started experimenting with mushrooms. And at first it was just...
Who pushed that on? Did they get pushed on you? Did you just all of a sudden enter your sphere of awareness?
I think it came to me and I was gravitated towards it, and no one really pushed anything.
But did someone introduce it? Like, how did...
Yeah, one of my roommates had like a whole bunch of mushrooms, and then I was like, hey, can I have some? And he was like, you can have it all. And I was like, okay.
You can have it all.
Yeah, I was like, all right, well, that's a calling. And then I didn't even think of it as a calling. I just was like, okay. And I had it. And so one thing I want to mention, so this whole time, ever since I moved to Canada, when I first started smoking cannabis, and ever since then it's been an addiction until about a few months ago. Cannabis, food as like a comfort eating sort of thing.
Okay, cannabis,
sugar,
food,
cigarettes, smoking tobacco.
In wrong relation.
Yes, not for prayer or anything. And caffeine. I was addicted to money too. That
it's funny.
Sex.
I don't think people don't really look at money that way. Addicted to money.
Yeah,
it's like hearing you say that, I'm like, you don't hear someone say that.
Why else would you succumb to yourself to like a 9-to-5 lifestyle and job that you don't want to do? It's because you're addicted to that money. You need that money for
other addictions,
for all your other habits. Yeah,
right.
And then sex, and also was an addictive habit of mine as well when I moved to Canada. Like unconscious, sort of disconnective, sort of. Yeah. So
that's kind of painting a grim picture.
Yeah,
you're addicted to a whole bunch of stuff, living the 9-to-5.
And that was still me doing all that stuff. Like actually, even when I ran triathlons, I was still smoking weed every day, which is crazy to think that I was able to do that, but I still did it. But it was an ingrained addictive habit.
I can't do anything if I smoke weed.
Yeah.
I smoked weed once in grade 8, and then that was the end of that, because I literally couldn't like walk.
Yeah. Yeah, and then someone told me, hey, all these addictions that you have, and especially the cannabis addiction that you have, it's related to trauma. And then I was like, trauma? What's trauma? What are you talking about? And then just like, here's this video of like 𝗙𝗢𝗓𝗡 talking about it. And I watched the video, and then my mind is just blown. It's like, okay, so it's stuff from your childhood. It's all stuff from your childhood, stuff from your upbringing.
So you're actually starting to acknowledge your own trauma?
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah. And then they started having more mushrooms with the intention of exploring some of that.
Right.
And I would take a decent amount of mushrooms, and I would go out in nature on my own and get on a bike. And yeah, I'd start feeling all these things that I'd suppressed around my childhood and my upbringing, especially around my father. Because what kind
of stuff was coming up?
Well, I had an abusive father, and I still love him, and me and him have worked through a lot right now. But he was physically and emotionally abusive to me and to my family, and that was stuff that I had really, really suppressed.
Right.
So it was time for me to feel into a lot of that, and I was crying, and a lot in those mushroom journeys, I was crying my eyeballs out. But I loved it. I felt like I was releasing like so much.
Did you have access? I've mentioned this in previous podcasts about how I didn't have access to crying and sadness, deep sorrow until I was about 28. Did you?
Yeah, that was about 27 or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
So using mushrooms, and at this point, you're starting to gain access to feeling your emotions.
100%. Yes.
It's amazing how that works, eh?
Yeah. And then, I had one mushroom trip. I was like, okay, well, maybe now I can not smoke weed. But no, it was a lot of work that I need to do to get to that point.
Right.
So it wasn't just mushrooms. It was like integrating that into multiple ceremonies and multiple healing experiences.
Are you doing a lot of these ceremonies by yourself?
With mushrooms?
Sure.
Yes.
And you're doing them in nature?
Yes.
So you're not staying at your apartment. You're getting
I've
out.
done both, but I think nature is definitely where I've moved through the most.
Cool. Yeah, I resonate.
Yeah.
That's how my journey was.
Yeah.
A lot of nature by myself.
Yeah. And I wouldn't recommend it, but also like I would bike in nature on mushrooms. I would not recommend that, but that, because I did get hurt, but you know, it was
on like paths. What do you mean you're biking in nature? Like, are there like on
like trails and stuff?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But you know, as I was riding through the trails and riding through sort of like ups and downs, I was riding through ups and downs of my emotions. So, yeah, that was cool.
So you kind of spent time, you start working with psychedelics, you're having insights that are both unconsciously and consciously starting to change your life and open you. And I know you kind of expressed that a really big transition is that when you started to really deepen into that and you discovered just activism and starting to step up to the plate in various capacities.
Yeah. So, you know, after a lot of that healing work, that was kind of my sort of my like deep awakening. And then as I was awakening, I was realizing, okay, there's a lot of crap like that we're just accepting in this life, like the destruction of nature, the destruction of our, like
just the way our system
is just messed up, you know. And then because it was COVID too, it was like extra clear and apparent that something's wrong, like just the way the government and everyone was dealing with COVID, and something was not right. So I had a lot of like frustration, and then I decided to channel a lot of that frustration into activism. So I got it out in a lot of protests and with Extinction Rebellion, and was out in the street blocking roads. And I'm not saying that was a good thing. That was a good thing at the time, but it was where I was at. And then,
but it's basically activism is basically something's wrong.
That's
wrong. Really what
you're. Yeah. And then, you know, I figured, okay, that's maybe one way we could change it, is to express this frustration.
Yeah.
And then I got into kerfuffles with police and stuff, and all that did was really re-trigger my trauma. So I wouldn't recommend it. But there was one time where I had around that time I had like a big mushroom journey, and I felt really called for it. And I really think mushrooms, it's a spiritual medicine. You know, when the time is right, it'll come to you, and the medicine will find the way to bring you to it.
Yeah.
You know, and at that time I felt really drawn for it, and it'll connect you to something and to messages. I really believe so. So I took a whole bunch of mushrooms, and because I felt like it. And then in that journey, it was a beautiful journey, and I was out in nature again. And in that journey, I remembered my activist friend who was in a tree sit, and I was like, oh, I wonder how he's doing. He probably needs some help. You know what? I really want to help him. So I called him up during my journey, and I usually don't talk to anyone. And he's like, hey, yeah, we need help. We're about to be taken down. We need some supplies. So I go.
Where is he? Where is this happening?
So this is at the TMX Trans Mountain Pipeline tree sit in Burnaby.
Got it. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, and I had like a really bad knee injury at the time. I couldn't really walk, but anyway, I did it anyways. I went to the site, and the police and security had them surrounded. I was like, whoa, this is a big mission to bring all these supplies, and they were heavy supplies. So I started scouting around, and I look at all the cameras and everything, and they had these loudspeakers. So whenever I'd step the line, it would be like, you're trespassing, we're recording you. And I was like, it was scary. It was really scary. Like they were trying to make you scared. But I found the vulnerability somewhere, and I dropped off the package, and yeah, I felt like very like special ops, like I was playing a video game, you know, like scouting and doing this sort of thing. It was very terrifying too, but it was very fearful, challenging moments.
Back to your discomfort.
Yeah, and back to discomfort. And I was in a lot of like knee pain. Like my knee was very unstable. I had torn a ligament, so I could barely even do this. But somehow my spirit fed me in a way to make me do it, because it was the right thing I had to do at the moment. And anyway, I earned a lot of respect with that person that I was trying to help after that moment. And I'm pretty sure I got into trouble for it. I'm in some database somewhere. But yeah, he hooked me up with this like experience. He was like, he called me one day, and he was like, hey, you want to come up to Tsleil-Waututh, where there's like activists going up to land in Tsleil-Waututh with Chief Daryl Bob. There's a sweat lodge, and he's doing teachings on protocols and allyship. I was like, okay, I don't know what a sweat lodge is. Yeah. And then so I went, and then I went to this protocols and allyship meeting, and
which you've been invited to, given because of the situation
because
you
of
put yourself
this
in.
situation that I put myself in. And then I met two chiefs, Chief Daryl Bob and Chief Reuben George. And that was the first time they mentioned the Sundance over there. And I was like, ooh, Sundance, like, what's that? I was so drawn to it. I had no idea what it was. No one really kind of explained it. But just when they mentioned it, something
I'll get into asking you what it is. Because probably a lot of people watching this have no idea what it is.
Yeah, yeah. And anyway, so then they were talking about how we could really help Indigenous people in that allyship meeting. And one of the things they mentioned was, the economics. We really need help with the economics and having like economic green projects and all that. I was like, ooh, that's like the side hustle that I'm just starting in my business. I just wrote a whole plan about it, green hydrogen and renewable energy. So
because at this point, had you stepped, because you were working the 9 to 5,
I was still doing that.
Had you stepped into entrepreneurship at that point?
I was doing like a side hustle. Yes, I was
You're testing
slowly, I
around.
was dipping my toes into entrepreneurship.
Got it.
Again, and the mushrooms really helped me realize what I really needed to do, right? And they gave me those visions that I needed to know what I'm stepping into.
Yeah.
Visions around renewable energy and hydrogen, So anyway, I
what kind of, wait, before, just to get context, what kind of engineer are you again?
Mechanical engineer. Yeah.
Okay.
But I work with like energy and power production.
Right.
So after the chiefs said all these things that deeply, deeply resonated with what I was doing, stepping into, I took them, they went into the house after, and I knocked on the door, and I went in, and the chief of Sundance talked to me. The first person to say is like, hey, Omar, he remembered my name. I feel like you were here, we were meant to meet each other, and you're here to talk to me. And I was like, I think so too. I think we were meant to have a connection. And then I explained to them what I was doing briefly, and then I wanted to work with renewables and green hydrogen, and I wanted to work with Indigenous people for it to grow that business. I didn't want to work with corporations or anything like that, and then circle the money back to Indigenous communities. And then anyway, so then that really resonated with them. And then on the way out, the whole thing was done and we were leaving, and then one of the chiefs, Chief Daryl Bobby, came to me, and I was like, hey, thank you for all that. And he's like, here's a pack of tobacco. And I was like shocked. It's like, a chief is gifting me tobacco? Usually, isn't it the other way around? I have to gift them tobacco, but he's here gifting me this big pouch of tobacco. And I was like, okay. I was like, he explains to me the tobacco carries a spirit of prayer. And he's like, so take some of that tobacco, and there's a creek way back there. And I didn't tell anybody else in this group about this creek. I'm telling you, okay, because I feel like you have a good vision. He said, go back to that creek over there and pray with that tobacco, and dip in that creek and pray really, really hard with that tobacco. And then you'll feel the tobacco pulsing in your hand when you're praying hard. And then I was like, okay. And he's like, he told me, careful what you're praying for, because you may not be able to handle it. And I was like, okay.
Be careful what you pray for.
Yes.
He said that?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And he may not be able to handle it. And then he laughed after that. And I was like, okay, this dude, he's serious. Okay, so this prayer is serious. Like he's making me really get serious about my prayer and what I'm actually praying for. So I go back there and I pray for my healing. And I pray for somebody that was really important in my life at the time that was struggling.
You hadn't prayed really since when, like, your experience as a kid? Like
I hadn't prayed since, I told you, since I left Kuwait. Really, that's when I was like 10.
But you weren't even in residence at that point.
No.
So it's like you're being asked by someone you respect.
Yes.
He's like, time to go pray.
Yes.
And the first prayer is for your healing.
Yes. He told me what the role tobacco plays in prayer,
which is,
and that it's a medicine. It's like sage is cleansing. Tobacco carries spirit of prayer, and that's something in Indigenous teaching. We use tobacco in ceremonies to carry prayer, and to carry our prayers with it. As we put tobacco in the fire, we're sacrificing the tobacco that we put the prayer into the spiritual realm. So I went into that creek, and I felt a deep connection in there, and put myself in the water, and it was cold. But as the intensity of the cold got harder, I just pray even harder, and I felt that tobacco in my hand, It was a really good moment. And I prayed for my business too. Yeah, and ever since then, my life has just been transforming in like a major way.
As soon as you started praying.
Yes. And I was like, what? Yeah, maybe I should have been careful about what I prayed for, because, you know, it's a lot. Like, it's a lot to handle. Like, pray for your healing. Like, dude, you know, like, healing is a hard thing. You have to go through a lot of crap to heal, right?
Yeah.
It's not a walk in the park.
No, actually, when I met you, you were still smoking and you were
Yes.
still, yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, do you know how to pray? Like, a lot of people don't know how to pray. Like, how do you pray?
For me,
I'll ask you a question this time.
For me, it's focused on a deeper intention, and I ask it to the creation, which for me, I experience it as it's in everything, right? And whatever the center of the conscious experience is what expands. It's like right awareness. So you've talked about, like, if you're bringing prayer or intention is a lighter way to potentially say it, because a lot of people kind of may brush off prayer as like some kind of a spiritual dogma or like a religious practice. Intention is almost another way of saying prayer, a deepening into the intention of creation. What are we creating? What are we asking for? What are you asking for? And for me, that's what I try and center it on. Is like, this is what I want.
Beautiful.
This is what I want, and this is what I'm willing to offer in reciprocity for what I want.
Sacrifice.
Right? Like, the sacrifice. It's like I want to offer something, and in return, I want.
Beautiful.
I want to create this, and then you trust that everything will align around that intention or that belief or that. It's like self-fulfilling prophecy at its most radiant form, right? We even know that scientifically. It's like it self-fulfills. It's like placebo effect almost, right? Because we believe it creates itself. Yes. And when we live in this platform, this existence that is literally infinite, anything is possible.
Exactly.
And it can be created. So we must be the one to create it. We have to take responsibility for what we're creating. And I think that's a really interesting thing about our lives, is that we're creating it. So when we go through all these difficult, challenging, like suffering experiences, when you really own it, you basically have to take responsibility for your own prayer and intention. I created this. I wanted to create this experience for myself.
I think
at some level, you wanted it.
Yeah.
The question is, why did I want this? Why did I create this misery in my life, or this addiction, or this whatever? And I think that's a really hard conversation to have. But for me, that's how I try and look at things. When something challenging has happened, it's like, I basically created this. That was my intention, or another way of, that was my prayer.
Beautiful. I think you explained that really well. And one thing I think that's very important that you said is to believe in that prayer, like to really believe in that prayer, because that's when, it's like you said, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, if you're not believing in what you're praying for, or that this is going to work, then what's the point of even doing it? Like, you're wasting your time. Go home, believe in it, and sacrifice too with prayer. Like, if you're asking for something, sacrifice something with it too, and in that intensity of sacrifice,
or offering something,
or offer tobacco. Or that's a sacrificial sort of offering in a way too, right? Your discomfort. So, and you're sacrificing your comfort and your time of your day for that prayer too. Yeah. And that's what we do in a lot of ceremonies. So after that, after meeting those people and meeting the chief of Sundance, I connected with him later, and then I gifted him that tobacco that was gifted to me. And I was like, hey, like, I think we have something. I can help you with business and all that, and maybe teach me about your ways. And then I started learning about this path of, they call the Red Road, and that is the road of sobriety, and connection, and ceremony. And so that's when I started being involved with the sweat lodges. He's like, hey, you want to come help me build a sweat? So I started building a sweat lodge. And that was a lot of teachings in that. And then I started fire keeping.
You know what's coming up too, actually, as we go into this, it's differentiating from prayer and intention.
Mm-hmm.
The languaging has shifted a lot for me, or not even a lot, entirely. It changes everything. Is I used to a lot really, it's like, it's my intention, it's my vision. And I think over the years, it's now become, it's God's plan for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my smaller self's intention and I'm going to do all this. It's kind of like what is laid out before me, and a lot more listening versus trying to take it all on myself. And that has been where a lot of the connection I've experienced has been. I'm not alone in this. There's something guiding this. It's not me I'm this guy that's going to do it. And,
it's your plan is connected with other people too. So it's almost like it's God's plan for the collective of people. And what is your role? What is your gift that you're providing for that collective vision and collective growth?
Yeah,
you know?
That's a huge shift. It really is a big shift. Because the one where when I'm gotta do it all myself, it's so much more like the North American way, like the individual way, and you don't have to be alone. And that's kind of what we're learning. I think I think that the whole model of individualism has been an interesting and evolutionary experience and test, so that we could experience that we're not really individuals. But so much of the language, even in just like how we're raised is in North America, it's like, be your own man and like, and take care of yourself and like you and, be unique. And like, there's a place for all that. But at the same time, if you're always putting your attention on trying to be different and unique and separate, you're going to experience separatism. You're going to experience individuation. And that's so much of what we're struggling with now, is people are feeling like alone in a place where fundamentally you're not alone. You feel alone, but we're not actually alone. We're part of something magnificent. The only question is, do you feel it? Are you experiencing the connection of what you really are?
Right. And that's like, once you get out of that individualistic mindset and you're more that communal mindset, you also learn to like share your abundance, share your wealth, share your love with people around you, that is living in right relationship, and that's what the spiritual path teaches you too,
so it's kind of a long journey to get into where you're to prayer. Prayer to your divine connection, which is really that conversation. It's like, you asked me what prayer is. You're having a conversation with who, with what?
Yeah. And to me, it's a conversation between me and Creator. That connection.
What is Creator? Is it like, what is Creator?
It is the Spirit. It is what created everything, created us all. It's what created this earth. It is the divine spirit, without sounding,
I know it's mystical. Undefinable.
Yeah. But it's in the cosmos, and it's in us. It's in this plant right here. It's in everything around us, and we're just connecting with that. It's one and it's all, and we're just connecting with that, and it's inside of us. Even if we just connect with ourselves, we can feel it.
Yeah.
And no one can tell you what your prayer is like. Your prayer is between you and Creator. It's that direct communication. You can do it in an altar. You can do it in nature. And I think once you've been in a situation where you've connected to Creator and connected to that spirit, you can always reconnect and come back to it.
Once you know how to.
Yeah. And I feel that's what ceremonies have really helped me, is to bring that connection and really connect. The mushroom ceremonies, but then also like some sober ceremonies, like the Sundance is probably the most significant connection.
So let's come back to that. So Sundance, I know, is been one of the most impactful experiences of your life.
Yes.
Let alone your year.
Yes.
Tell me what Sundance is all about, and just tell us what.
Well, Sundance is like, it is, it's a 4-day dance and you're fasting. It's a ceremony, and the ceremony is to connect with Creator, and to bring prayers, to pray for yourself, to pray for the people, to pray for the nation. And it's all about prayer. And it's to bring those prayers up to the spiritual realm and to manifest those prayers for everyone. And it's very strong and very powerful. And it's why you got to be, again, very precise and very careful.
Is this something that goes on all over the world, or is this something
that is something
local?
Something that goes on in North America, in Turtle Island, it's an indigenous ceremony. But there are ceremonies that involve lots of prayers all over the world. This is just
this particular one.
This
Sundance,
particular one, yeah. And yeah, so it's a 4-day ceremony. You sacrifice food, fasting, no water. You're dancing from sunrise.
Incredible, dude. No water or like food. Yeah, okay, but no water for 4 days while you're dancing in the sun in the summer.
In the middle of the summer in August. That's insane. You're dancing from sunrise to sundown, and you're doing a sweat lodge in the start of the day and in the end of the day.
Any water you do have, you're sweating it.
Yeah. And then you get pierced to a tree as well. That is part of the ceremony. So you have all these sacrifices that are happening. And the idea is that with all these prayers that you're asking for, you're sacrificing things with it. Your comfort. You're really pushing yourself. You're really, really challenging yourself. And then you're doing a lot of healing. There's a lot of things that come up for people in that ceremony too. And then you have that one-on-one conversation with Creator. And when you're pierced to the tree, you're pierced and connected with a rope to the tree. And then that is your one-on-one time with Creator. And that's when you really bring those prayers up into the spiritual realm. And it's a very, very, very powerful experience. And it's not for everyone. But
did you I know you can do like other because you were actually a dancer.
Yes,
but a lot of the time people don't dance in their first experience being there. They'll do like fire keeping or something else to support.
Yes,
you didn't do that. You just went right to dancing.
I went straight into the fire. Yes, but I did that. I was. I had to fire keep for a while at the sweat lodge, and I had to do like the sweat because sweats are purification. So I had to also sober up before I was allowed. Like the path to the Sundance is also a path to sobriety. So there's a lot of former addicts as well that do the Sundance, and that's what helped them sober up. So building up to the Sundance
until you've cleanse yourself.
Yeah, you have to be clean, and that's what helped me.
Clean intention.
Yeah, I cleansed in all these sweat lodges, and I've been sober now for about 4 months from everything, and I've never felt so good in my life, feeling into all my emotions. And I also did a ghost dance, and I think the ghost dance is what really helped me sober up, because in that ghost dance, that was on Canada Day weekend, and I really prayed for my addictions then to really go away. I was really, really like praying really hard in that ghost dance for that. And the ghost dance is a bit different. It's a nighttime dance ceremony. And right after that, it was gone, and my prayers were answered. And
this period, like this, this big transition point for you sounds like it started, like for many people, it started during COVID. Do you think like COVID in that way was like a blessing to like really wake the hell out of people and like that and launch us into this next couple decades of complete transformation? So. That's kind of what I feel, but
yeah, maybe, perhaps it was nature's way of balancing itself and trying to waken people up. Maybe we were so out of balance. Like, I don't know. I feel like I was just in this like vortex, and there was no way I could have done any of this if I wasn't jolted out of it.
Yeah.
So
where do you have any projections of what you think is going to take place over the next decade? Are we heading into much more difficult territory? Because not a lot of people are doing that. Like, I think there's a lot of people in our sphere, but like as a percentage of humanity, how many people are actually in ceremony and like deeply committed to their healing at this point? I don't know if I just live in a vortex where it feels like all my friends are into this stuff, but
there is a few prophecies around indigenous culture that talk about this and talk about a time where it's called the rainbow prophecy, where people of the rainbow, so people of different backgrounds and different walks of life and different parts of the world will come together in this path, in this ceremony path. And connect,
beautiful path,
have this right relationship with nature and Mother Earth, and then save it from the destruction and that's happening to it right now. We're destroying Mother Earth. So there are some prophecies around that, but my prediction, I don't know. I try not to have any expectations so I don't get disappointed.
Just focus on your
But
healing.
yeah, the only projection is, the only thing I really think about is my own healing, and what I could do with the right people to help. And I do think right now where there is a shift around resource extraction and fossil fuels. And
a positive shift?
Yes, I think it's happening. I think it's slow, but I think it's happening. And I think those in that cult and in that realm are aware of it and they're in denial about it. But you can be damn sure that we're all praying for that change and we're going to be walking our prayers. So
thank you. So if you're going to keep your attention focused on yourself, your healing, and I really liked the notion of walking your prayer. What is it? How does one walk their prayer? Someone listening to this podcast, what does it mean to walk your prayer?
So, if we go to these ceremonies and we pray and we sacrifice our time, our blood, our flesh, and our energy, and we go home and sit on a couch, what does that do? It does nothing. So walking a prayer is, intentionally stepping into what you've been praying for on a daily basis. So,
we can't just pray, we have to act.
Yeah, take the right action, the aligned action that aligns with your prayer. So people, let's take the mystical side of prayer. Let's put this mystical side of prayer aside.
Yeah.
And, these ceremonies, they create a lot of that connection with the spiritual realm. And there's a lot of magic and mysticism that happens, but
I felt that.
And it's true and it's real. And, we believe in that because it's real. But let's put that aside for a second and think about prayer from a logical approach.
Yeah.
More scientific brain here. So now if you pray every day, you pray for 3 or 4 things. You pray for your healing, you pray for yourself, you pray for maybe a partner in your life, or pray for your business. And usually in those prayers, you try to be very precise, like very concise, but precise. You get into details. Like if you want a business, well, what do you want for your business? Do you want an investor? Do you want investments coming in? What amount? Like just try to be a bit specific about that. You want a partner, be specific about what traits you want from that partner. Because, God can give you a partner, but what do you actually want? You want somebody that's kind, that's gentle, compassionate, intelligent. Ask for these things. And then, pray every day. If you pray every day, you make that a habit. Okay. Every day you're reminding yourself of what you want and what you need in your life. And that's intention. You're setting an intention for yourself.
So regardless of the spiritual, making it all mystical, it's just like, it's almost another word for like deep vision.
Yeah. You're programming.
You're programming your vision in.
Yes.
And then act on it when it shows up.
And you're going to attract that. That's the thing. You're going to attract it. It's going to come. And when that opportunity comes, that window of opportunity, you're going to be so self-aware about what you want and what you need that you will see that opportunity and it will be crystal clear. And when that comes, you're going to be like, oh, I've been praying for that for like 3-4 months now. I'm not going to shy away from going there and walking my prayer and going for that opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be unsure or have any self-doubt. You know, that's part of it. Because if you're not being intentional about your day, if you're going about your day without any intention, those opportunities will come and you forget what you want or what you're thinking, what you're praying for. So you might miss it. It's like an exit on a highway. You're driving and the exit's coming, and then you drive past that exit.
It's just like the compound effect of it all too.
Yeah.
Like do you have an intention for your day?
Yes.
An intentionless day is like how many people walk around.
Yeah. And think of it, you know, as when that opportunity comes, it's like an exit on the highway.
Right.
To take your prayer and to take what you've been asking for. Take it and go for it. Don't miss it. You know, and that's the thing about prayer and walking your prayer and being intentional. And that's aside from anything mystical or ceremonial. So, and you know, I think the best thing to pray for is your healing. That is what I pray for all the time. I pray for my healing.
Especially for the day and age we're in right now, it's an age for healing.
Always gotta heal, because when you heal, that's your awakening happening. You wake up. The fog is clear. The fog is clear on who you are, what you want, and what your path is in your life.
Do you feel like you'll just keep praying for healing forever? Is it like, do you think is healing something you just keep doing?
I keep praying for healing. I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon, because I still have a lot. You know, we all have a lot, man. I mean, you stay humble here, and really, like, if you think you have nothing to heal from, well, then maybe. I
really like that.
Yeah, I think stay humble. And there's always things that are going to happen in life. Life is never going to be a walk in the park. You're going to get punched in the face a couple times, and you need to heal from that, you know?
Yeah.
So I always pray for healing, because if we all heal, the fog is clear and we can walk our path. And walking that path is walking your prayer.
Dude, beautiful.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah, and I'm not claiming to be somebody or anybody that knows everything. You know, I'm just sharing my experience, and I really hope that people work on themselves and their healing, and to show up to ceremonies. You know, and these ceremonies, these indigenous ceremonies, are very powerful. Whether they're peyote ceremonies or Sundance ceremonies, and you know, that medicine that's there. You know. Yeah. I hear this sometimes.
Just fire ceremonies.
Yeah.
Just let the fire do the work.
You know, and if, you know, if you walk into these ceremonies, if you're somebody, maybe that medicine will make you nobody. And if you're nobody, maybe that medicine will make you somebody. You know, so basically, if you have an ego, it'll take your ego away. But if you don't know who you are, it'll help you find your path. And that's the power of those ceremonies.
Yeah, it gives each individual what they need.
Yeah.
It's so unique.
Exactly.
Thanks for coming on the podcast, man.
Yeah. You're welcome. And yeah, hopefully 1 million subscribers. Let's pray for that. Walk that prayer. Brad, walk that prayer.
The 1 million subscriber prayer. Okay, I don't think I've been sending that prayer. I should send that one. Maybe I'll get to 1,000 first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Baby steps.
Yeah. You want a hug?
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, buddy.
Oh. Love you, bro.
Love you too, man. Walk the prayer.
Yeah.
Great stuff.